Very cold-minded.
Yes, I guess I'll just answer your first question first. What I'd like all the parties to do in the forthcoming general election is to have a section on Northern Ireland and a new Ireland, making unification not just an aspiration but an objective. And that means things like strengthening the Shared Ireland unit, it means increasing the Shared Island Fund, and it means things like a new Ireland Commission like this, involving anyone who's willing to take part in it, from politics and civil society. The principle is very simply there in the Good Friday Agreement, that a simple majority is enough. And I don't think if there was a simple majority that you could say that that's not enough. But of course it wouldn't be ideal. And the kind of thing we should aim for is as big a yes vote as possible, both south and north of the border. So 50+1 is enough, but it's not what we want. And that's why I think we need, as much as possible, to co-design what that new Ireland looks like, people north and south, and then people from the British Unionist community as well.
Young presentation.
Mr. Varadkar, Mary McDonald this morning has said you found your inner sinner. Do you feel more free to talk about this now as you're not Taoiseach and you're not your party leader? And in regard to that, do you think maybe the constraints you felt as Taoiseach, that in some way hampers the momentum of progressing this issue? And do you think future Taoiseach should be more prepared to speak openly about a new Ireland? Perhaps they're concerned about destabilising the relationship with the UK as a consequence of speaking about that?
Yeah, look, one of the advantages of not being involved in electoral politics now is I'm more free to say what I think and do what I think is right, whereas when you're Taoiseach, when you're a leader of a political party, you have to think about how your party's going to react, how your coalition partner is going to react, how the media might interpret it, how it might be heard in London, for example. And look, I'm less concerned about those things. Constraints come with office and you accept them, but when you don't hold office anymore, you don't have the same level of constraints. Certainly, when I was Taoiseach, I was very aware of the fact that what we had to prioritise was getting an agreement on Brexit, in which there would be no hard border between north and south. And then once that was secured, and that took a lot longer than I thought, we had to make 3 agreements with the British to get that through. Then the priority was getting institutions in Stormont back up and running. So the main thing that we were able to do in terms of a new Ireland was setting up the Shared Island Unit and the Shared Island Fund. I think everyone now accepts that's been a good success. But the question is, over the next 5 years, what's next? And I think it is beefing up the Shared Island Unit, increasing the Shared Island Fund, and setting up a new Ireland Commission to engage with anybody who's willing to engage on these questions, to work out what the question being put to the public should be, to work out what a new Ireland would look like, and also how the transition would be managed.
Karen Pierce, BBC.
Mr. Varadkar, you talked about the economic prosperity on the island going forward, and you mentioned big projects like the A5. We just heard this morning that the Infrastructure Minister, John O'Dowd at Stormont, has recommended to his ministerial colleagues that big, massive projects should go ahead. You, of course, the Taoiseach at a pivotal time of the planning and all of that. I mean, it's not fully approved yet because it has to be shared and discussed by the executive. But what are your general thoughts on that as a project to the future you spoke to?
Yeah, look, I haven't seen the announcement today, but if that's the case, I'm delighted. This is a road that should have been built 20 years ago, and Derry and Donegal need to be better connected to the rest of the island, and that road is necessary, both in terms of transport and economics, but also road safety. I'm very conscious of the large number of people who've lost their lives or been injured on that road. So I welcome any progress, and I really hope that it can start. I actually started off as Transport Minister, believe it or not, in 2011 and 2012, that long ago, and we had to cut our contribution to the A5 at that time because we were in a very bad situation financially, and we also cancelled the narrow water bridge. And I am overjoyed to see the narrow water bridge now under construction, and the sooner the A5 gets started, the better. I'm not sure how many what's for that.
Well, I just think we're very grateful for the Irish Government support all along for those kind of big projects. Sometimes the problems haven't been coming from Dublin, they've been coming from elsewhere. But if that is happening in terms of the A5, that's a very good thing. This part of the island, as Leo was saying, has been totally disconnected from the rest of the island, and that has meant we've been disconnected economically, and our people have been disconnected. We've also not been able to fully expand our universities, but we're seeing money coming in from the Shared Island Fund now into McGee to help build up that. But there's much more to be done, and it's wonderful to hear what Leo's saying about the need for more to be done from the Dublin government, the proper investment, not just having the big conversation, which is very important, but also putting their money where their mouth is, and they're doing that. So that's a very positive thing.
Brett, our time.
We've heard a lot today about the need for diversity, about inclusivity. You've acknowledged in your speech about the 1 million or so unionists who need to be talked to as part of this, the need to co-design this new Ireland. These are people, many of whom will say they do not want to have this conversation. It's notable today that in the room there are only pupils from Catholic schools. How do you shift that dial? How do you have this conversation if those people don't want to have the conversation?
Yeah, look, that's a very good question, and I don't know a simple answer to that. There are people who are very strong and avowed unionists who will never want to have this conversation. Just as I wouldn't want to engage in a conversation about the Republic of Ireland joining the United Kingdom, I wouldn't be interested in that. So that is a real difficulty for us. But I do think there are people who come from a Protestant background, or come from a Protestant unionist alliance background, who don't necessarily vote for the unionist parties anymore, who might be interested in engaging. They might vote Alliance, they might vote SDLP or Green, or they might vote at all. So I do think there are people, and I've met them, who are interested in having this conversation, and they're coming from a background that traditionally would be Protestant or unionist. Well, it is one of the ideas why I think there is some merit in considering a two-stage referendum, because if we had the first stage and people north and south voted for unification in principle, I think you might then get a larger number who would accept the democratic outcome and then might be willing to engage in the co-design of what the new Ireland looks like.
Catherine, our news.
Yeah, Catherine, with me. Leo, what did you take away today from what you heard from the young people? What was your takeaway from what they were saying? What engaged you most about what they were saying today?
Yeah, look, a couple of things. I always love to engage with young people because you always come away a little bit more hopeful. I think as we all enter middle age, we become a little bit more cynical. It's great to meet young people and hear them say, whether it's in universities or in schools. One thing that I was struck talking to some of the students here, was there's a very large number who are thinking of going away to university or going elsewhere for their training after school, and a concern that there aren't enough jobs or good jobs here in Derry. And that really struck me, because you don't hear that as much. You don't really hear that as much in Dublin or Galway or Cork, and the reasons are very different. And I think one thing that Colum touched on that really has to be part of our new Ireland is making sure that here in the northwest, in this part of Ireland, we have a much bigger university in McGee than we have at the moment, so that the courses are there, and people, if they want to go to Britain or Dublin or Belfast, that's a choice, but people shouldn't have to leave the city because courses aren't available. And then secondly, to make sure that we have that infrastructure, so we have economic development here in Derry and also in Donegal, so the good jobs are there. And it's great that people go to other parts of the country or get the chance to live abroad, but it should be a choice, not something that people feel they've no choice about.
Jordan Moore, Mirror TV.
One question is just that's okay. Mr. Varadkar, when it comes to, obviously, you mentioned yourself as an election coming up not that long away in the south, you're obviously largely pushing this idea for, Irish unity and the border report. What would you say to people who think that's just an attempt to steal what's possibly on Sinn Féin? And the question you've gone on to you over at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool, where those comments made by Flora Anderson and border report as a priority for the Labour Party. Do you think she speaks for the Labour Party as a whole? And if so, where is that kind of relationship between the SDLP and
Yeah, well, look, the election will come in the Republic in the next few months. The main issues are going to be things like housing, like cost of living, like migration, like health. I don't think that unification or border poll is going to be the issue that comes up most frequently on the doors. And in research, it shows that it's an issue, but not in the top 2 or 3. All I'm asking is that all of the parties put in their manifesto something about this. That not be something that isn't considered, doesn't feature in the programme for government. And I've set out roughly what I'd like to see all parties do. And I mean all parties, not just my own.
Well, on the issue of Labour, I find the reaction to that quite funny, that the British government don't have as their top priority Irish unity. I don't think that should be a surprise to anybody. The reality is the people of Ireland get to decide the future of our country. That's what the Good Friday Agreement says. And what the Labour Party have actually said is they don't see it happening anytime soon, but when the numbers are there, they will call a referendum. Hilary Benn was very clear on that. They will stand by the Good Friday Agreement. So it's not really for us to worry about that. What we need to be concerned about is building the case for Irish unity, of convincing those million British people that they're going to be part of that new Ireland, and of making sure that people in this room and other rooms can see that there's going to be lots of economic opportunity and we don't have to leave and all of that. So I wouldn't get hung up on that. Our relationship with the Labour Party is a sister party relationship. We take our own whip, we're critical friends, we vote against and speak against when we have to, but we also use our influence because we've got it, and actually being there in Westminster matters. Only a week ago the Derry City deal was paused. Well, it's not paused now, because some of us were able to use that influence to get that money, to make sure that decision was turned around, and the announcement was made last week that there's going to be nearly £300 million spent in this city developing the economy, 105 million coming from Westminster. That was able to be done because of our relationship with the Labour Party. So we're critical friends, we're not always in the same place, and when it comes to Irish unity, of course we're going to be in a different place from a British party, but that doesn't mean we can't work together.
Okay, thanks folks.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.